So welcome to the session, to this fourth in our series of Festival for Finance, and a welcome to our fabulous panelists, Peter Till, Paul Nesbitt, Sue Williams and Michael Grove. Thank you for giving up your time this afternoon for us. So this afternoon, this webinar is a joint collaboration with the Master Innholders, between the Master Innholders, Arena for Finance with my colleague Deborah Adams, and my own company, Merlin Consultancy. So additional resources will be available. We'll tell you what those are at the end of the webinar. And for past webinars and this recording will all be available either through the Arena for Finance website and the Master Innholders YouTube site. So we'll put the links on the chat later on as we go. But Master Innholders, if you go to www.masterinholders, then you will find the Midas recordings there. So past webinars in the series, this is number 4 in our Festival for Finance. We've done some other topics which you can look at, so food waste, food cost. And today we're going to be talking about energy and the cost of energy and saving energy, not only from a cost point of view, from a sustainability point of view also. So welcome. So can we introduce each of you? So Sue, as you're our first guest, please will you introduce yourself, a little bit about who you are, where you work, and how energy affects you.
So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sue Williams, and I'm the general manager at Whatley Manor Hotel over in Wiltshire. We are property transitioning to net zero emissions, and we've been on our journey for about 3 years now. So energy has been a major focus for us throughout that time, and ever more so in these times when we're seeing energy costs rising just through the roof. So yeah, we're very focused on the subject of energy at Whatley.
Thank you very much. And Michael, can I introduce you too?
Sure. Yeah, Michael Grove from the CEO at Hotstats. For those of you who don't know who we are, we collect profit and loss data on a monthly basis from hotels all around the world. The hoteliers generally use that for benchmarking, but also I provide market updates to the investment community on profitability of hotels in different regions of all different shapes and sizes. So yeah, for number one, it of course has a huge impact on the profitability of hotels, and therefore I've been talking a lot about energy over the last 6 months or so around the world. But also personally, having recently gone through the process of trying to sort out the energy consumption of my own home, I've realised that there are lots of things that we all probably don't even know we don't know yet. So I think there's certainly lots of angles to that I come from.
Interesting, lovely, thank you. I look forward to hearing about that. Now, of course, it's not only the energy to heat, but it's also the energy to air condition that we're going to have to bear if this continues. Thank you. Paul, a few words from you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Paul Nesbitt. I'm Paul Nesbitt. I'm Finance Director of Valley Europe and the Middle East and Africa. We've got about 90 hotels throughout the world. That basically range from many different brands and standalone individual assets. In terms of us, we've got 2 or 3 very, very famous sustainable hotels. We have the Gulf Shores Hotel in Alabama, which is one of the 10 most eco hotels in the world as for National Geographic. We've got Spires Wine Estate in South Africa, which is one of Africa's most sustainable wine areas and business estates. And in Valley Europe, we've been working on this for about the last 4 years in terms of where we go in terms of sustainability. So I'll touch on some of that a bit later on for everybody.
Brilliant, thank you. Look forward to that too. And last but not least, Peter from...
Right, Peter Till. I'm a chairman of the EEA, which is the Energy and Environment Alliance. And we are a non-profit organization which has been set up in order to help the hotel industry globally reach a zero carbon footprint. So energy, of course, is very central to what we're doing as well.
Lovely, thank you very much. So can you tell us a little more while we're with you about the work of the Energy and Environment Alliance, Peter, please?
Sure. We were set up in the fall of 2020 when a number of us got together and realized that our industry really faces a lot of challenges when it comes to dealing with the global environment and trying to reach a zero carbon footprint. And we saw those challenges as things such as the fact that we as an industry are very fractured. We have so many different and individual hotels as well as small chains and of course the larger chains. We also have different operating situations where there are management contracts, franchise agreements, lease agreements, many different stakeholders involved in different aspects of running individual hotels as well as group hotels. And then we also saw that within our industry, there has not been a standardized definition of some of the key things like what is a zero carbon footprint. We don't have standard metrics to measure the performance of hotels. And we don't have a best practice that we all can agree on in terms of what hotels should be doing in order to work towards that goal. We think this is particularly difficult for individual hotels who do not have the resources to do a lot of internal work about what they should be doing in order to best move their hotel forward. But we also saw that the big chains were all going into their typical internal work to come up with their own idea of how to move forward. And in many cases, of course, one company's ideas are not the same as another's. And if you're looking to compare the eco performance, if you will, of either individual hotels or chains of hotels, we didn't have a standardized methodology for measuring the performance of those entities. So we set ourselves up with the goal as a nonprofit organization to help the industry come up with those various facets of things that we need in order to move forward and to help individual hotels decide what is the best thing for them to do. We also are establishing specific areas where we can offer assistance to hotels, energy being a key one of those. For example, we have energy providers who can aggregate the electric demand of individual hotels into one large group of demand, and therefore negotiate much better rates for that energy from wholly green renewable sources. So that means for an individual hotel, upon becoming a member of our alliance, they would be enabled to pursue that, which would not only reduce their energy costs, but would also mean that they would be getting green energy rather than from some not so green source. So that's the kind of thing that we're doing. We have committees working on the legal aspects of all of this, how it will affect the terms and conditions that are in franchise agreements, management contracts, et cetera, et cetera. We have a technical committee, which is coming up with the metrics that we should be using to measure the performance of hotels, things like kilowatt hours per occupied room. And we have a finance committee, which is working with sources of finance, both lenders and investors, in order to align the hotel industry with the kind of things that those sources of funds are looking for to put their money into. So it's really a very large basket of things that we're working on. We currently have about 1,800 members representing roughly 9,000 hotels, and we're getting new members on a regular basis. We had our first annual conference in London last year, which we will repeat again next year. So that's who we are and what we do.
Fantastic, thank you. And if we wanted to find out more, where do we go?
EEA.international is the website, and you will see everything on there you need including how to become a member.
Thank you very much. So we'll come back to and from an operating perspective shortly, but before we do that, do you want us to have an update from Michael, because you've got some stats for us, haven't you, from Hot Stats?
Yeah, I mean, what I've done is I've pulled together over the last few months. I've done a fair few presentations on the investment conference stages, and the themes are pretty similar no matter where we are in the world. But the one thing, certainly in Europe and the UK, that keeps being repeated is, of course, this impact, this ever-growing impact of energy. So I thought I'd just share a few of the slides with you. Just bear with me a second while I bring it up. Okay, hoping you can see my screen. Cool. Okay, so yeah, the key topics that certainly have kept coming up, and again last week when we were planning for the annual hotel conference in the UK in a couple of months' time, these were certainly a taster of some of the key themes that were coming up with that. Still around, the return of certain segments from the top line, the labour challenge, and of course there's various moving parts of that, inflation on the cost lines. And of course, the key one that I'll show you in a moment why it's the key one on energy. So to begin with, I think it's good to see that from a demand point of view, or certainly from a revenue point of view, we are not that far off where we were back in 2019 now. As of the month of May, we're approximately 5% back in total revenue. Forget the various stories within these numbers, because that would require a whole other discussion. But really the key story is that now we can start evaluating the P&L properly, because we're almost back at those revenue levels that we were back in 2019. And of course, some of the key items for the UK here, you can see is that, we're over 8.5% up in ADR. We were around 2% up in food and beverage per occupied room, albeit occupancy is still some way, a few percent left to go. Spa revenue, you can see they're 17% up. C&B is the area still slightly back. So on a per occupied room basis, we're about 7% up overall in revenue per room sold. So the reason I say that is because we should be all, of course, enjoying the increase in profitability that comes with those growths in per occupied room revenues. But of course, we do have some key items. We know that we have an issue within the variable labour, the in-demand labour, such as front office, housekeeping, and of course, food and beverage. The impact on this is, of course, hitting some of the departmental revenue lines and profitability lines. Here you can see food and beverage, for instance, labour costs up 4 percentage points in food and beverage labour margin. A lot of that coming from the fact that C&B is still so far back. And again, similar story there for food and beverage cost of sale, again, still 2 percentage points up. So overall, F&B margin been quite hard hit. But the real story around hotels has been that we've really managed this quite well. The pandemic has forced us into the zero-based budgeting approach. Hotels are much leaner than we were pre-pandemic overall. The zero-based budget was always going to be a healthy exercise. And what it's forced us into is, of course, not knowing in advance that we were going to see such increases across the board in the front of house areas. We actually saw as things stand, around 11.5% drop in undistributed expenses and labour costs. So much of the increases in the front of house areas has actually been offset by the back of house areas of the hotel. And actually, as things stand, we should have been hovering around the levels of profit margin that we were pre-pandemic. But we're not. We're around 3 percentage points back in GOP margin at a macro view, albeit there is lots of course, variety within the hotel market in the UK. But I think it's good to see, from a trend point of view, where these items are changing. And a lot of that is coming from, of course, this growth in utilities. If you look at it graphically, it really does look quite scary. Presenting for the US, you can see here, certainly not impacted anywhere near the levels we've seen in Europe. In fact, we've still seen a slight decline, which, to be honest, we should expect to see. Over the last 4 years, we've put a lot of resource and focus into ESG and into reduction of energy. So, hotels generally should, and we're still not at those occupancy levels, as I mentioned just now. So there is still a lot. There should have been a small advantage coming out the other side of the pandemic, knowing that there was a lot of focus put in these areas over the last few years. But in the meantime, you see here, Europe, of course, most hotels across Europe are experiencing a similar issue to the UK. The UK actually here at 7.3 or £7.30 per available room versus the £4.80 we were pre-pandemic. And of course, even within that mix, there are hotels that or hoteliers that are still in fixed contracts from pre-crisis, so possibly renegotiated either last year or within the last few years, and of course are still taking advantage of those relatively low rates versus what is now available in the market. We're hearing stories of operators re-signing agreements, and I'm sure Paul and the others will be able to elaborate a bit on this. Renegotiating that's over 100%, 150% increase in unit price for energy. So real significant change. So what we did actually is we pulled out of the data just to look at those hotels and look at a sample of hotels that are clearly have gone out of contract more recently. And here you can see, for instance, if we just look at the orange, this is the frightening number. And I don't mean to depress everybody on the call. It's just really good to look at the reality of it in numbers and in pictures. You can see here, you know, from this 4.7, £4.70 we were back in 2018, now at £9.30. So this is, you know, this is a real significant increase. And of course, the impact on profit margin, because I've displayed here, I think there are a few stories that we can talk about within different hotel types. So of course, during the pandemic, the full service and certainly in the luxury sector, we saw huge changes to the back of house areas of the hotels as we made them much more lean and much more similar to the select service style operating model. Of course, a lot of that good stuff has then been offset by these increases in the front of house areas. And of course, the various nature of the luxury segment, in particular with the spa and leisure and possibly even golf and external activities, and the full service hotels having a much larger footprint, of course, you would expect they would have been much harder hit by these increases in utility costs. Now, at the bottom, what I'm explaining here is just showing the difference between the GOP margin. So you can see there's the 3 percentage points back in GOP margin for the UK. 2 percentage points of that comes directly from utilities. And I think this really has been the story that I've been presenting over the last few months, is that, you know, we need to think of this as every increase in on a percentage point basis in utilities as a percentage of revenue, of course, is has the opposite impact directly on profitability. So you know that every 1% increase in utilities against revenue is going to detract from your profit versus the revenue also at the same time. And here you can see the out of contract hotels. So actually, for those hotels, for that sample at a macro view, those hotels would be flat from a GOP margin point of view with the same time in 2019, but actually purely due to utilities are actually 3 percentage points back. So yeah, that was my small snapshot from a data point of view.
Gosh, thanks very much. Whew, my heart's beating. I don't know about anybody else. It's
talk about the opportunities.
Thank you. Yes, that's true. So Sue and Paul, from an operator's perspective, can we hear from you, please? Thank you.
Well, I am that operator who is really just at the point of renegotiating contracts, and I can concur with all those stats. That is a reflection of what we're seeing. I think there is a wonderful ad on TV at the moment, and it's the cheapest energy is the energy you don't use, and that is my mantra through the operation. We have actually, as part and parcel of our sustainability journey, written an energy management plan. It has sort of 7 pillars to it, and that is really trained into the team. So I conduct the training on the subject sustainability for the team 100%. It's a requirement of the accreditation program that we're going through. It's the right thing to do anyway, but a huge focus of that training is really energy consumption and the specifics around their role and their immediate department that they're in. So it's going to take time to see whether that really sort of impacts, and so it has to be a positive, you know, bringing this awareness to the fore, sharing the numbers with them, and then really just little things that I pull out, things like just leaving one television on standby all year is £26.40. And of course, we've got lots of TVs at the hotel. Of course, again, their own personal finances at home. It's really one to think about. You know, I've got 3 TVs at home. Oh, another £75. So it's really thinking about how that everything that is electrical that's plugged in with the rocker switch on, that it is drawing power. And we're just absolutely Olympians, I should say, at that. That's what I'm saying to the team. We, you know, really need to ever more become sort of Olympic champions on the subject of energy saving. So we are looking at the minutiae, and then of course we're looking at the big elements of plants and M&E generally around the building, the pool, obviously the hot water, all of these things, just trying to get an overall gain of bringing that consumption down.
Thank you very much. You're already a long way down that road on a sustainability.
Thank goodness, you know, really. Although changing all the light bulbs, we saved 75% energy to light the hotel from the point where we began, back in 2019. So I'm very pleased to arrive at that point as we're just about to go through the renewal process. And that is certainly true of any sort of procurement and things that we've done in the last 3 years. We have new energy efficient boilers. So we put those in during lockdown. And now we have 6 boilers instead of 9. We have a full BMS, boiler management system, so that we can kind of really watch it. We watch every single valve and things like that around the building, looking for evidence of stuck valves, which are just like on all the time. And so just making sure that we're really drilling down for all these potential energy hungry failings in the system around the hotel, just powering it back down where we can.
Relentless rigor, isn't it, that?
So I'm gonna pick up on Sue. I'm gonna pick up on Sue's points, because I think there's 2 ways that you have to look at this. So I'm not going to go into the sustainability part of it for what I'm talking about at the moment, because I think it happens by what you do, and I'm just going to take you through. So I think absolutely where Sue's just come from, you've got to audit your business. You've got to audit your hotel. And there's great people out there that will work with you on that. We use a guy called Paul Webb, who does a lot on energy conservation. You look at the lagging. Have you checked all your laggings in place from your boiler through the hotel? Because the heat lost from the boiler to where you need to get it to the bathroom. So if you haven't got your lagging right, what's happening is your boiler's having to work more, so you're burning more energy. You look at the temperatures, and look at the temperatures where your boilers are being set. And again, making sure no one can override those. If you set them, don't have them on manual, make sure you set them properly so that your boiler's working to the level you want, and actually see how efficient you are. Seals, Sue touched on very easily. So that's, immediately look at, again, what's being wasted, and from that point of view. So look at water in terms of the kitchens, what's happening from there. And again, we did a whole exercise way back when we actually looked at where did we focus our lighting and our energy saving. And again, if you think about a kitchen is probably lighting on for 16 hours a day, but a bedroom's only on for 3 or 4. So again, where do you spend your money? Your return on putting in new LED lighting in a kitchen could be a year, 18 months, compared to a bedroom that could be 5 years. Think about corridors, think about storerooms. What are you doing to stop storeroom lighting on all day? So move away from having switches. So pressure points. So you hit a pressure point, it's only going to be on for 25 minutes in a storeroom. Sensors, corridor sensors. There's so many things you can do to look at actually how do you get your energy consumption down. Now, so that comes into then where we look at sustainability, etc. Because if you're consuming less, that's great. Then obviously buy in through green energy, and we've had green electricity now for 4 years. When we bought that as part of our overall sustainability. So, but it's actually how do you audit? I mean, actually, no one, it's a bit like a lot of things. We're not experts in everything. So partner with people who are those experts that can work with you, that really understand what your boiler should be set at, what heat you should have your pool set at, so that, from the ambient air to the pool, there is setups that they tell you to make it work. So work with these guys to actually get your energy down. Because again, there's 2 things you think about it, and I'll touch on the second part in a minute, but manage, it's about manage what you can control and actually not worry about some things you can't. If you know you're ultimately using the right amount of energy and you're conserving your energy, actually at the moment, the price is what the price is. You're either in a deal or you're not, but actually you can't control that. That's a macroeconomic environment. What happens today, what happens tomorrow, there's a lot you can't control there. But if you're efficient in what you're doing, that may be all you can do. So at least at night you go, I know my hotel is only using what it needs to be. So that's part A of a journey. The second part is understanding your bill. You get your electric bill, you look at it, and it's like a Chinese takeaway menu. There's about 30 different things, and you're going, what the is that? What is all these charges? You look at, Michael just showed, why is the UK up against the rest? Well, a lot of it is tariffs and government surcharges they're sticking on, green levies for this, triad. Then they start going for all these different charges that are coming in there. So actually your bill, consumption is like 35% and 65% is what government's levying on you. Okay, but if you understand the bits of it, what can you do? The most important thing is understanding the red zone. Okay, on your electric bill, there is a red zone, which is the peak hour tariff. Depending which supplier and the region you get it from, it's somewhere in the region between 4 and 7:30 at night. Okay, and some of them could be 4:30 to 7, some could be 4 till 6:30, whatever. But you as a hotelier and you as an owner of a business need to know when that is. And the reason is your cost goes up tenfold in those three hours. 10 times the cost of operating. So think about it in a kitchen. One rationale oven is on at 5 to 4. 5 past 4, you'll be in charge as if 10 rational ovens are on. Okay? So we have on-premise laundry in a few of our properties. What did we do? We stopped the premise laundry, finished at 3:30 in the afternoon. We changed the shift. We paid slightly more and got people to come in at 7:30 to 3:30. We don't want to be laundering bed sheets, linen and everything between 4 and 5:30 at night. It's costing us 10 times the amount it's costing earlier in the day. Our green teams in the hotels walk the property regularly, but that focus, get them focused between 4 and 7:30, making sure everything's turned off. How often do you walk into a room, banquet room's empty at 5 o'clock at night, they've left the banquet room, it's lit up, the ballroom is lit up with everything on. But that's your red zone. That's the time where it's costing you horrendously. So think about your business and think about where those switch points are and think, actually, what can I do to reduce the cost, not just consumption, but the cost because it's a premium time. Why is it a premium time? Because the children come home from school. Cooking's happening, TVs are on, the Wi-Fi's on. The grid cannot cope with the demand between that period. So what does it do? It charges you more. Not only that, then you get charged on top of that with your triad costs that come in on top of that because it's a peak time. So then actually if the system can't cope, you get a further surcharge. So think about it, you can control your consumption, okay? But actually, do you know what you're being billed? And if you know what you're being billed, would you change habits in your hotels? I'm not saying walk around the hotel, turn every light off, make sure it's pitch black and the customer can't find their bedroom. We're still hoteliers, it's what we do. But actually, what about that 20-30% that's being wasted? What could we do better in that period of time to be more effective to get control of our billing? And that's where you work with either your broker, work with, as I said, guys that are energy specialists who will sit with you and go, okay, how can I mitigate what I've got coming down the road?
Thank you. That's really interesting. And presumably that works for domestic bills as well. We could do the same with our domestic bills.
Yeah, it's slightly less because you do have your day and your night. But I mean, depending on those, it's still the same. It's still peak time. It's still an element of that. So again, you've got to look at your bills, etc., and ask the questions, what am I being charged for?
Great. Thank you.
And if I know what that is, what can I do about it?
Yeah, thank you. And Sue, as it looks as if you are actually sitting in a red zone.
Yes, it does.
How does this red zone impact on you?
I mean, I'm learning from this call, so thank you very much. But I haven't really thought about this sort of 4 till 7 point, but I'm certainly very cognizant that we pay 24% less for our nighttime energy. So I sort of pivoted by having one more employee at night and giving them a number of jobs like sort of keeping the laundry moving and ironing tablecloths and things that are energy heavy overnight. It's been said before, but it is, you really do need to deeply focus on this and grow your knowledge. You'd just be crazy not to.
We've talked about green,
to help yourself.
Thank you. We've talked about green energy. Can you define for me what green energy is? Or
So
somebody? Can somebody?
Well, only from renewable sources. I wouldn't be probably the number one expert on this, but ours is REGO, which is the renewable energy. I can't remember what it quite stands for, but it's the certification to ensure that the energy you're procuring is certified renewable, which is certainly part and parcel of where we're at. I mean, I have a bit of a dream, and I'm hoping that we can enact it is that when we renew our gas, although it's looking to be 30% more expensive of obviously an already a huge uplift, we very much wish to go to green gas, to biogas. So I know that will be a year-on-year uplift in cost, but it means we have no capital expenditure. So all the literally the boilers we have now are ready to receive biogas, and that would wipe 500 tons of carbon off my footprint. So it's something I'm hoping to do, but I can see it fading as the prices go up and up. But I think I'm very fortunate our owner is minded to go that way.
Brilliant, thank you so much. Peter, you've heard from the operators, and is there anything that you would add, or advice, or further support that you can throw into the ring on reduction?
Well, from what I'm hearing, it's good news that the operators and the companies are pursuing this thing quite diligently. I think that Sue made an important point where she said that the cheapest energy is no energy. And I think that's going to be the secret for a lot of hotels, in particular, well, the existing hotels. And there is a very real difference between what an existing hotel can reasonably be expected to do in terms of the costs of making changes versus the sort of thing that I think Paul was involved in quite a bit, which is developing new hotels from the ground up, in which case you can build into the property the kind of energy saving devices and systems and designs that will have a long-term effect. But if you are an existing hotel, and most of our members are existing hotels, you have a built environment which might come from an era where energy costs were not at all a consideration and none of this was on the horizon. And you've got to fight with the fact that your building is very bad when it comes to solar loading. It probably has a very poor R factor or insulation factor in the walls. It could be a brick built building from the 1960s. And you cannot financially really expect to have much of an impact on those major construction elements. The other thing that strikes me is that as we get farther and farther into reducing energy consumption, perhaps changing the hours that where certain things are done or available in order to avoid the higher tariffs, we inevitably are going to come into a position, probably already are, where what we're doing is beginning to impact even only slightly on the guest experience. And one of the things that I think is going to happen over time as we progress is that our guests are going to become more aware of the need to make these changes and hopefully more understanding and accepting of perhaps minor things that they can't do, perhaps down the line, not being able to take showers but certain hours of the day, getting used to motion sensor light systems in the corridors, whereas as we all know, they're not always ideal in terms of how they function, and we would rather have the lights on all the time if you're arriving late at night into a long dark corridor. But I think that the guests are moving along with us, and we need to help take them with there. And the days are over where we can just put a little sign in the bathroom saying, please help us save energy by using a dirty towel. I think that sort of stuff is now quite passé. And the guest wants to see that what you're doing is a reasonable and intelligent way to approach the project. They want to know that you're not just greenwashing and making a lot of noise, but not actually doing very much. But what I hear from both Sue and Paul indicates that at least their companies, their properties, are taking it very seriously indeed, which is great news.
Brilliant, thank you so much. Paul, you've got your hand.
Yeah, two things, Peter. I don't accept that because I've got old buildings, I'm not going to do anything. And as a CFO of a hotel company, that won't go very far if I sat with a general manager that said that to me. We've got a number of hotels that are gold accredited in terms of, working on what they do, because the building may not be the greatest, but actually the team are so engaged about how they can manage energy, how they can, work on that. And I think, yes, it's more challenging. It's easier with a brand new building. Clearly, you can build all this in. but there's no way you're just going to give up. You know, at the end of the day, some of the guys that have got some of the older buildings, I've had the Palace at Manchester, I've had various different hotels over my lifestyle, and people like Richard Morel at the Palace was the first guy that ever was on it and drove as hard than any of our managers about how he could get, you know, the green element into his hotel, what he was doing, the sustainability in food, energy in the rooms, talking to the customers. It's a mindset. If the mindset's right, you want to make it happen. And some people take that challenge because it's harder. Doesn't mean they'll give up. It means they're going to work twice as hard. So I think every building we have in all of hospitality can still be better. Yes, there's total challenges.
So I'm just saying that there are certain things that you can do with a new building.
Totally, yeah. But now the amount of work you can do with companies that can come back and retrofit things and work with them and deal with the challenges, we can absolutely, we can all be better. And it's my job at times to find the funding to do things people want to do, and that can be challenging, certainly with certain investors that may not see it as big or important as there's something in the front of house. But I think energy cost has got them rethinking and coming back to the table and saying, what can we do to mitigate this cost? So suddenly it's back on the radar, which is great. So 100% really do think that we can make big impacts in there, and we can work on that better. And it's a bit like I'm sitting here with a plastic bottle today. I shouldn't be, but I'm in the middle of the Gulf, and it's what we can get at the moment. So it's not something I can walk around with other ways of doing it. But the customer is telling us what they want. The customer is asking us what we're doing. They've done it now with plastics. They've done it with recycling. Energy is coming the same way. So the customer is going to drive the change because they want to know what you're about. They're coming to ask you, and they'll make the choice, generally make the choice of where they stay over time if they feel that you're doing what's their important values and they feel you're at it or you're not. So it isn't something you can just pay lip service to and you can stick a poster up and go, look at us, we're great. It's not going to wash, really not going to wash.
Thank you. There's a couple of themes there I'd love to follow, if that's okay. One is from a customer point of view, because I know, Sue, you are passionate about that in terms of the presence and the marketing that and the customer experience. Well, the other one before we get to the customer experience is a lot of the people on the call, and please do ask questions, don't just sit there quietly, do please send some questions in for us. A lot of the people on the call are not general managers, they're not in particularly senior positions, they're not owners. What if I'm sitting as a team member watching this, what could I do? Where should I start?
Gosh, purely on the subject of energy, I mean, it's attend my training, listen up, and take it back to their departments, and just get, I don't know, how do you get people excited about the subject? But I tease that we're all going to become Olympians in this field, and I have rather got the team kind of going all over, just like knocking every switch off where they possibly can. But they just need to know that the world that we're operating in now, it's shifting. And I think it's, if you can try and get that message to them in a way that doesn't bring too much anxiety, but to weave it, the energy and the sustainability piece being absolutely, hand in hand. I think, well, certainly in Whatley's instance, that's our opportunity. It's really kind of driving it through the sustainability. The accreditation that we're going for is very rigorous, and we have to kind of gather all the data and evidence what we're doing. So I just try to bring them on the journey with me. It's necessary. 100 people all doing the right thing will make a big difference.
Thank you.
I think the other thing we've got is each of our properties, we have a green committee and we have green champions, and we're bigger. So fairness,
we have it too.
Yeah, we've got 35 hotels. We've got at least 2 to 3 people in that. We have meetings with them. We get speakers come in to help them. But what we do is we set the agenda and let them run it. I'm not the expert, nor is the leadership team. There's more people passionate than I am about how to do it and sharing experiences. And actually, once you start that, it develops itself, and they start talking their own groups about what they're doing and how they're doing it. And actually, if you're passionate about this subject and how you want to do it, then the opportunity within the hotel is come and join the committee, get involved, be part of the communication group. We've got a WhatsApp group that they're all talking about what they see and feeding off each other. And actually, as I said, as a leadership team, if we just drive it, then it's like another initiative that no one, or the bosses are giving us grief, we've got to do it. If you let the teams drive it and you just engage with it, you find it lives more in the business.
Yeah, but you have to put it on the agenda first. Eh? It has to actually be there on the agenda.
Yeah, and you've got to put framework, and you've got to give them the time to participate, and you've got to properly set it up. But actually, if it can run itself, it's far more powerful than another head office initiative. And here we go, and we've got to do this because someone's going to have a go at us because we haven't done X or Y.
Yeah,
it won't live that way. It's got to live because people want to drive it, and the teams steer it themselves.
Yeah, good, brilliant. Michael, what are your comments on what you're hearing, what you heard so far?
Well, timing wise, there was a really good point made on ROI earlier when you're talking about when I used to do these projects not that long ago in hotel operations, and look at putting an ROI together for LED light bulbs was the example you used there, but there's plenty of them, which is where you engage with the specialist. You get the specialist in to tell you where the best areas of ROI are, and often there is no capital outlay because you can pay them through the savings, so you're actually able to just offset it within your cash flow. But I thought if you look at the ROI now, look at the numbers I showed earlier and the percentage increase in pricing. A lot of these ROIs are now like half of what they were just a year ago. So if we're looking at something that was a 2-year, 3-year ROI, that could be like almost a year now. And I think that's a really interesting and quite exciting thing to pull all of those ROIs back out of the cabinet and revisit them. I think there's quite a bit there, certainly for the old stock. And I think also the point on from the guests expecting this kind of stuff. I think also the staff also expect it. I mean, it's certainly a lot of these guys are young and I know our team. We have a relatively small team at Hotstats, but they expect this stuff. This is very normal for them now. I think from the consumption point of view, going through this process at my own house, because I've been out of operations now for a good 5 years, I found it fascinating that there were things that didn't impact me, obviously would never impact a customer or the family here, which was getting an electrician in to look at the voltage levels on certain parts of the distribution system, and adjusting those and what that could do. That could save us up to like 15% over a year, and none of us would even know about it. But of course, I don't know that I don't know that. So it's only when a specialist comes in to show me that. I think this is really an area of expertise, and the hoteliers can just can take a lot from that and get it into the business. I think there's certainly a real point there around getting specialists in to really give you that key advice.
Yes, I that's what I'm hearing from all of you, that when we don't know what we don't know, this whole energy consumption topic can be a little bit overwhelming, because I don't know what I don't know, but there are specialists out there who can help us and guide us in the right direction. And it may, as you say, it may not cost you anything, because the return on investment that you get from the changes that they make may well pay for that advice.
I know from the data requests we've been getting, I know there is definitely a move to a energy consumption strategy as part of the budget process, and as in central to the budget process, rather than something that was just sat alongside it. And I think that's going to be key going forward. If I was sat in a finance chair right now, for me, that would be an area that I would put a lot of focus into, because it's really not going to impact the guests if I can make those reductions without impacting the guests or the staff. And protect that bit of profit that I should be taking through the increase in ADR and reduction of the cost base. So I think it's definitely centre now.
Thank you. We better had asked Paul, as he is in a finance chair. What would you say, Paul, to that? Oh, you're on mute. Oh,
I am. Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, sorry. No, I 100% agree. I mean, I go back probably longer than some of the people around here that this is probably 15 years ago, 10 years ago, we was doing this when prices were going through the ceiling, and it was like number one conversation, and what can we do? And it's the same now. And as I said, a number of us have been on this journey for different reasons, not just purely because the market prices increased so much, but actually, how do we reduce consumption? How can we be more efficient? And I think it is challenging all of this now and saying, right, actually, as you're looking at budgeting, we can't just allow a 100% increase in our utility cost. You know, we've got to, what are we going to do? Do we need to invest money? Do we need to look at how we can, what our consumption's happening, etc.? Because the one thing is, if you're in a fixed contract or you've got to go into a fixed contract, it is what it is the one that you can't change that price. So the only thing you can change is how much you're going to consume. And as I said earlier, knowing where the billing is, to then look at it and go, what do we have to change as a habit to mitigate some of that cost increase?
Yeah, Paul, just out of interest, are you fixing now for new agreements? Would you even look at fixed pricing now, or do we think this is a temporary?
We're in a bit of both for different. We've got a 5-year gas deal that we did at the bottom of the market 2 years ago. So, and we've got CHPs in a lot of our properties. So we're in a very fortunate position on that. We're currently doing short-term electricity deals because we just don't see the market price being right for us to do a long-term deal. But we're looking at it all the time. But at the moment, if you were taking a long-term deal at the moment, you're paying for that risk for a period of time. And my gut feel has been at the moment that you just got to manage through that period to come out the other side. But it's different for everybody, and it depends on how the risk profile of the investor, etc. But yeah, we've got kind of a mixed bag of different ones at the moment. But the biggest thing is, yeah, if there's an opportunity and you've got the right price, I would always look at either fixing or capping, or hedging a proportion, even if it's just a proportion, so you're not at risk for the major fluctuations.
Paul, if I may ask, are you guys using solar panels at all, and what's your approach to that as a way of sourcing your own electricity?
Yeah, we've looked at wind and solar. We haven't got any at this point. We've got proposals coming in at the moment. We've got a large car park in one of our hotels. The top floor is not really used, so we're looking at a proposal to put solar on there, and that would actually light the whole car park. So we're working on different options, and very much solar. We do see solars coming in. We're looking at wind, but again, it's how can you maximize that? But I definitely think we'll be adding solar as part of our strategy, and we are talking to our boards about, and certainly different investors, about adding solar, as well as having CHPs, as well as having energy management programs, because we do feel there's an opportunity to top up with solar and see where that goes. But there's a number of options out there, you know, underground heat pumps. There's so many different options if you've got land and you've got space that you can use. Some of our hotels, unfortunately, we don't have the rights above the hotel, we don't have the rights below, so it limits to some of the things we can do. So again, you've got to look at each individual property and what's the right thing for that.
Thank you. Sue, can I ask you about solar and also about your thoughts around the customer and demand and interest in energy costs?
I would say overall that it's not forefront of the customer's mind. I think the first sort of points when we do touch and conversations come about are with car charging. So that certainly was a point when we did not charge, but we do now. I don't have any kickback at all. I think there's just that understanding that that's the way it's going to be. I think it's the reverse of Wi-Fi. We used to pay for it, now it's free. Electric was free, now it's going to be paid for. I think that's sort of understood. In the rooms, really, luckily, they just don't have to be aware. They don't really have to think about it. I think little things around water for us. We do have, we changed the shower heads to move away from 15 litres a minute to 9 litres. And then we have these little So I'm doing little. They are little tile size monitors in the showers. So as soon as the guest turns the tap on, it starts a timer, and it brings all this data back on a dashboard to us. So we can kind of see, we know exactly how many showers per month have been taken by our guests. We know the average length. We can then apply the savings between the 9 and the 15 litres delivery shower heads, and we can work out, how much water we're saving. Of course, it's hot water and therefore energy, and so we're just trying to measure. But I think you talk about the guest. I think we end up having a bit of fun with that, because although we're 5-star and we certainly don't want them shortening, well, of course we do, but we don't press the point that they're kind of reducing the length of their showers. But if they're 3 or 4 night stay, we tend to end up having a bit of fun. Oh, I've shaved 15 seconds off my shower, or whatever, a minute, and didn't have to wash my hair today, so I've shaved 2 minutes. We end up having conversations and sort of a bit of fun around it. But for us, the data that we're getting is very helpful. And we can see where the financial savings are, and we can understand it around energy as well. I don't think there's too much more really on energy from the guest perspective.
Do you think they care that you care?
Oh, they certainly care. I mean, the whole sustainability piece is a frequent conversation from the sort of touch points in the rooms and things like that. And they are, there's no question. And, I catch them having conversations about sustainability, and I kind of wade in. And they do choose. I ask them directly, did you choose this property because of its sustainability? And 1 or 2 will say yes. 1 or 2 say no, it's purely geography because they had a wedding to go to or something in the area. But a lot of people are starting to seek it out. There's no question. It's not coming in absolute swathes. But to that point, I think Google is going to be such a huge player in this scenario, because they've just launched Google Travel, and they are awarding eco-certified to properties that we've got an external accreditation. So I'm very thrilled. We've got eco-certified. There's only a handful of properties in the UK that have actually got that. But that will mean if you don't have it, you're going to start to sort of lose traction in your Google searching. And Google themselves are saying that it's plus 500% that the traveller that's looking or searching rather through environmental, sustainable, ethical travel, that sort of thing, plus 500%. So for me to get this eco-certified, it is really a commercial sense. I want to stay relevant, and I want to stay up there in that search terms. I want to keep my page speed up. We got the back end of our website done last year because I knew this was coming, just by, because I'm in this circle of this headspace about taking the business on its sustainability journey. Luckily, I was aware of that last year. So we changed the back end of our website to sort of reflect their algorithms, new algorithms, and so that we can be sure to keep our page speed up and things like that. So, I think there's lots of things in play, and hopefully guests will see more of that and, bring more people to us because of it, I hope.
Thank you. It's amazing how hotel management is such a scientific activity, isn't it?
It is now.
Now,
yeah,
it's just amazing. So all of these things coming along, and whatever the future holds for us, we just need more and more data and to act on the data.
Oh, it will all be about data and AI the way through a lot of this, for certain.
Fantastic. So we need to begin to think about whether there's any questions coming in from the audience, or whether there's one last tip that would give people who are with us in terms of energy saving. So who wants to go first on a tip for the one tip to take away, the one thing out of this afternoon? If you've been watching, what would you want them to take away?
Well, for me, I think the main tip is, as Sue's been talking about, and Paul, just reducing the amount of energy that you use. Being smart about that is a win-win all around. And that would be my one main tip to take from today.
Yeah. And mine would be to get your whole team engaged on the subject and kind of really understand, share the numbers, share the data with them, and show them how they can impact and be part of helping the business. I say that my line for Whatley is, the success of the business is down to each and every one of us, and this is an absolute prime piece or element of what we do that they can kind of make a real difference and help us with. So, yeah.
For mine is very much of just don't try and think you know it all. Don't try and think you can do it on your own. You know, there is people out there who will help you, and engaging properly with them, using their expertise, you'll find that you're going to make much bigger savings much quicker.
Yeah. Agreed.
I think you were calling me, but you're on mute.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I was.
I'm going to go for the obvious and make sure we measure it, because I think measuring and being able to display the numbers, which is kind of what Sue was saying there, is a huge way to kind of make it fun and get the competitive nature of the team together. But on again, going back to the ROI point, I think it is time to revisit those investment projects on certain areas, enhancing BMS systems, etc. That the specialists really provide the advice of which areas to look at first.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for your time this afternoon. It's been I've learned a lot. I'm going to go and look at my electricity bill now and find out, and go and turn my tellies off.
Yes.
So thank you.
Do it.
Thank you for that. Yeah, thank you very much. That was very enlightening. So this is sadly the last of our Festival for Finance webinars for now. So on behalf of Deborah, who is with us, but she's a silent partner this afternoon, but on behalf of Deborah and myself, thank you, and for all our panelists through the 4 weeks. We've thoroughly enjoyed it. We're certainly going to do it again, so watch out. So future events, if you want to look at this or view it again, it's on the Master Innholders website under MIDAS, and MIDAS is for Master Innholders Developing Additional Skills. So please do look us up there. And also Arena for Finance, Deborah has very generously offered a free trial period during July and August for all her finance for hospitality online resources and community. So if you want to visit the Arena for Finance website, which is where you registered to get onto this call, then there's lots of free activity there as well. So we have thoroughly enjoyed it. We've thoroughly enjoyed all of you this afternoon. So Peter, Paul, Michael and Sue, thank you very much for joining us and for sharing so much of your wisdom. And we look forward to seeing you again in the future. So thank you,
Hilary.
everyone. Thank you all.
Goodbye.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.